has had implications for all of us. The armed forces get asked to do a great deal. They do it incredibly well. However, my committee's recent report highlighted serious concerns in the event of a war with a peer adversary, including on stockpiles, on resupply, on personnel and training. We need to be ready to deter. Are those concerns that you recognise?
No, I believe that we are investing in our defences. If you look at track record over the last few years, I, as Chancellor, approved the largest uplift in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, £24 billion. Subsequent to that, different events have announced something like £10 billion extra over the next few years, particularly focused on stockpiles, as you rightly mentioned, as an area of focus. Also strengthening our nuclear enterprise, which yesterday's announcement, which we made when I was in Barrow, further does. And we remain the second largest defence spender, not just now, but over the past decade in NATO. And everywhere I go, and the other leaders I talk to, they have nothing but respect and admiration for our armed forces, are keen to do more with us, learn from us, and that's why we've strengthened our military alliances, defence alliances with countries like Japan, like South Korea, and others.
Absolutely take the point that we are investing, but clearly a lot has happened since 2020, including Ukraine, to which the Chair referred. The Defence Secretary has referred to us entering into a pre-war world. Against that backdrop, when do we expect to be hitting our 2.5% ambition?
We've said we will do that when the conditions allow, but it's worth saying that defence spending is already on an upward trajectory, and we're already due to hit 2.3% of GDP on defence spending. And it's also important to recognise that investments in supporting Ukraine are also investment in our security. I think the Chair made the point at the beginning that collective security in the Euro-Atlantic is indivisible. Ukraine's security is our security. And Russia's forces being degraded ultimately is to a benefit for us. What I would say is that the last year or so has made it clear that there is work to be done on defence industrial production, and that's not a UK only concern. That's one concern shared by all our allies across Europe and NATO, which is why we have put specifically more money into munitions, into long-term contracts for things like whether it's NLAWs or Starstreak missiles or 155mm ammunition, which there's been lots of commentary on. And I think that has, what the last year or so has showed that we need to collectively up our game when it comes to defence industrial production. We're making the investments, we're signing the contracts, and I think we can look forward to a very significant increase in the coming months and years. And
I agree with that promise, but we really need to. So at the moment, Russia is outgunning Ukraine 5-1 in terms of expenditure of shells. There's recent reports by CNN about how substantially Russia is producing munitions in excess of what the US and Europe are doing. And with 40% of all Russian government expenditure going onto their military, with the hot war in Europe, with increasing challenges, as we've discussed, from China and Iran, I know you said earlier to this committee, quite reasonably, the government is about prioritisation, but would you accept that there is a point where we can't afford not to invest more in our national defence?
I agree with that, and that's why we are, and we have prioritised it. And yesterday's announcement, again, further evidence of our commitment to our security and making sure that the resilience of our nuclear enterprise is safeguarded for years to come. But munitions is a particular issue, and you're right to highlight Russian production. That's why we announced in February that we were going to invest almost £250 million to reinvigorate supply chains, and also just a couple of weeks ago we announced another £300 million for cutting-edge drones to fight Putin's invasion. It's why my first trip of this year was to Ukraine. Very deliberately, I was the first foreign leader to be there. We were the first major country to announce our financial support for this year, which has increased versus the last 2 years. So that's a sign of my commitment and my prioritisation. But we can't do this alone. And it's all very well us spending what we're spending on defence. It's all very well us providing support to the Ukrainians. Well, we need allies to do the same. That is the only way collectively to give them the help that they need. I'm pleased that we've demonstrated leadership in that, and that was recognised by President Zelensky when I was there. He was grateful for us to do it, and that has helped catalyse other announcements from other countries, and that's been the track record when it comes to Ukraine. First country to provide lethal aid, first country to provide main battle tanks, first country to provide long-range weapons. Ultimately, all those things were emulated by others, which has benefited our collective security. But we are leading. I'm proud of our role, but we need everyone else to step up too.
Thank you for that, Prime Minister. I would have liked to have heard a date on 2.5. We will perhaps more. We will persist on that. But by way of a last question, you just mentioned the announcement on nuclear yesterday. That followed a very positive announcement on AUKUS last week. But we need an awful lot. We need more nuclear PhDs, more nuclear apprentices. There's the investment in Barrow. There's the work to be done on our transport infrastructure. The list goes on. How are you going to institutionalise a cross-government effort to ensure that we can actually generate that national endeavour that we need to do to get where we need to be?
All the things that you mentioned are things that were covered by the announcement yesterday, doubling the number of apprenticeships, graduates, PhDs, because you're right, we need all of those, and investing £200 million in the long-term transformation of Barrow, so it's a fantastic place to live, work, raise a family. They do an enormous and important job for us. Everybody there, we owe them a debt of gratitude, and it's right that we're supporting them. I've been chairing specific NSC meetings focused on this since I became Prime Minister. We have strengthened the nuclear enterprise, not just with funding, but with better governance, and we have made it a proper national endeavour, and you can expect that we'll put the governance in place to ensure the delivery of that. There's a fantastic SRO in Maddie, who you'll know, who's doing an excellent job, and I think it's now getting the attention and focus that it deserves and needs to ensure we can deliver on the task ahead.
So it's NSC-led, and it flows from there. You absolutely got the grip at the centre.
Yes, and it has coordinated all the different aspects, whether that's MHCLG for Barrow, DESNES on the civil nuclear side, and obviously the defence aspects as well. And we've brought it all together, and I've spent quite a bit of time on it over the past year.
Thank you.
Jeremy, I'm tempted to ask, what consideration you're giving to putting 2.5% of GDP for defence in the manifesto like the triple log?
Well, I think we'll try not to write too much of the manifesto in the here and now. So